Hello folks, welcome back to Learn Synthesis with VCV Rack. I'm your host, Dr. Lawrence W. Moore of the Wayfarer project. In this episode, Series 3, Episode 8, we are continuing our journey through the KautenjaDSP library of modules for VCV Rack, the virtual Eurorack modeling system, both of which are free. So if you find an interest in something you see here, you can go to Series 1, Episode 1 and see how to download them and get started with VCV Rack exploration. This episode specifically is going to be on the Mini Boss, which is a module that comes with KautenjaDSP modules. It is modeled off of the Yamaha YM2612 chipset that was used in Sega Mega Drive and Sega Genesis. So we'll be making some pretty cool sounds today, and it's a nice little module that I think you'll like. So here we go. Okay, so I have a basic setup here today. Our MIDI in module, our audio out module, and then I have the modules in question that we're going to be looking at, the Mini Boss. And so I have one up here and one down here. Both are hooked up to pitch and gate. This one I did not hook up here yet, but I'm going to be using it later to do some FM synthesis with this module. But first, let's take a tour of the Mini Boss. The top is an envelope area, and it's a little different than what you might normally see in an envelope generator. It has an attack rate setting, excuse me. So usually the abbreviation AR in envelopes means attack release, like a simple envelope with an attack and release. But in this case, it means attack rate. Really, attack time is what it is. How quick is the attack? So, for example, I'm playing the sound right there. You see, not much change at first, but as you get further down, you can really hear kind of like a fade in, a ramp, basically. And it's kind of counterintuitive that basically the attack is more gradual as you go down. A lot of times these sliders are kind of arranged as far as down means less time and up means more time. So the slower attack that takes more time is usually in a more upward position. So that takes a little getting used to here, but no problem there. Let me just find one I like. That's a little too slow. What about there? It has a nice little sweet sound to it, and I like that sweep coming in. So let's see here. We have here, I believe this is meaning top level, kind of like the peak level, like basically over the attack time, what is the peak that it arrives to? And so, yeah, you see, you basically turn the sound off. So yeah, if you don't want it to be as aggressive with its sound, you can basically and that, really has affected the sound a lot. It's less buzzy. It's almost as if in fact, let me zoom and see. Sorry, when I zoom in this way to see the text, you're going to see a second mouse cursor. Please ignore the small one. The big one's me. Here, I just wanted to read this. This is total level. Okay. Wow. We're also hearing a little bit of a timbral change on it, though, too, if you ask me. Maybe it's like taking a little bit of the drive off. It's modeling some sort of a drive in the sound that makes it sound buzzier. Because I don't really hear, yeah, it really sounds like just a softening of the harmonics, the overtones are being attenuated a bit, as well as the overall level of the sound. Okay, and then we go over here to its delay rate, which is kind of like delay time. To hear this clearly, I'm going to turn down the sustain level. So the peak that we arrive to here over the attack time, or attack rate, as they call it, will lower down to the sustain level over the course of this delay rate. Not hearing a big difference there. Maybe the delay rate. Oh, I have it all the way down. That probably has something to do with it. There we go. So it gets shorter as you go up, longer as you go down, and then all the way down. It's basically staying in the decay portion of the envelope. If I've been saying delay this whole time, it's my brain, okay? It's decay. So attack, decay, sustain, release. All right, so basically when you have it all the way down, it means that basically it's going to stay in the decay portion of the envelope. In other words, you're going to be at this top level, peak level of the amplitude the whole time, and you won't even get to sustain. So you got to be a little careful about that. Pretty sound. Now let's go on here to sustain rate. Now this really comes into play with this function here. So I'm going to come to this next, and let's just do release first. Our release time, fairly quick. As you go down, it gets longer. I release that key. Like there's a big difference here. Like here, I'm gonna just tap the key. So I basically had the same tap, and just this little bit of difference here has made a longer release time. But as you go up and it shortens it, it can get to the point where if you want some of that kind of rough video game sort of sound, it's like clipping off, so you hear the artifact at the end, in fact, too. But if you put it somewhere around there, you don't really hear much of a long release or anything. The note cuts off at the end of you playing it, but you don't hear a artifact snap. Oh, incidentally, it is polyphonic. I believe I set this to 4-note polyphony. Yep. And so we could play 4 notes. Simultaneously, and we're all good. So it's a polyphonic module. That actually sounded pretty cool. Let me see here. I would put a little more sustain on it. But anyway, because our sustain level is a little, our sustain level is all the way down. Now I can actually hold the key and it'll sustain a bit. There we go. All right, so now I said I was going to mention this later. This is sustain rate. Now, I'm using a MIDI keyboard, and typically your sustain portion of the envelope is just going to hold as long as you're holding the note down, and as soon as you release the note, the release portion comes in, and that governs how long it takes to fade out. In this case, sustain rate is, well, you see, as I turn it up, of course you can't see because you don't see me holding down the key, but I'm holding down the key, and now I basically have a sustained time. This lasts a little longer. This lasts a little longer. This lasts longer. And if it's all the way down, it'll last until you release the key. But this also is affected by this switch here. This has the ability to loop your envelope. I'm going to turn that on. Now we're not going to hear anything if our sustain rate is all the way down, which means it's holding that sustain portion of the envelope until you release the key. But we move it up a bit. Oh, I think we also need to take the decay rate and move it all the way down as well. Hold on here. Oh, this is in an off position. I must have clicked it twice accidentally. It's not happening. Hold on a second. Let me work on this here. There we go. The decay rate can't be all the way down. I just didn't realize that I had this off. I thought I had it on. So the decay rate can't be all the way down, and the sustain rate can't be all the way down. So the sustain rate does have an effect on the pulsing rate, but you also have that here. So right now at this level, I can hear the punctuation of having, you know, the top level and a bit of a decay time. It can get shortened or lengthened. And I can hear kind of like the difference between that top level and the sustain level. But the sustain level is brief. As this envelope continues to loop. But what we can do is turn up a rate here with this knob. And that's in fact shortening the envelope now. The envelope with the attack and the attack rate, the decay rate, and so forth is now getting kind of cut off because this rate is getting faster than, you know, in reproducing the envelope before it's completely finished. I'm going to put the sustain level all the way up so there's really there's only going to be one level, the top level. Wow. Wasn't quite expecting that. Cool, let's try this here. As I get higher in pitch, the rate is getting higher. No, it isn't actually. No, it must have been just kind of like a hallucination there. All right, so. Okay, that might drive one batty after a little while, so I'll take the loop off and let's see what we got here. Yeah. There we go. We're all back to normal now. But anyway, that's a cool feature. And down here, we do have CV inputs to control the different portions of the envelope. The attack rate, the top level, the decay rate, the sustain level, sustain rate, and then release rate. You do not have any CV input to control turning on and off the loop, nor its rate dial here. So that's something that you have to actually engage on the module itself, and you cannot have some other, like a sequencer or something, changing that. A bit of a shame, although you do get some rate control. Like basically, if you have it on and you decide you want it on for this module, you can basically use this sustain rate to do a lot of speed control. I mean, that was giving me rate adjustment as well. Okay, so now sound making with this. Well, we do have a frequency knob. So you could use multiples of these together and chorus them. In fact, why don't we do that a little bit here? Let's stretch out and have a little fun. I'm going to put in another one of these. This one I'm saving down here to do some frequency modulation. So here we are. Here's the mini boss. And next time we're going to take a look at this. It's also based on the same chipset, but this is basically like 4 mini bosses and an algorithm section where you can basically utilize these together in a number of different ways, primarily for FM synthesis. Arranging which ones are carrier oscillators, which ones are modulating oscillators, and some of them could be modulators of a modulator and so forth. But that'll be next time. It's good to know this first because it's a little bit more simple setup, and once you're comfortable with it, then the other ones make more sense. Looking for our good old VCV mixer. I typed in the word mixer. There it is. Okay. So oscillator 1 is now going to go into channel 1. And this oscillator is going to go into channel 2. We want to do some simple chorusing. I can right click on this. And usually modules let me copy things. You go to preset, you go to copy. You're not actually loading a preset that's saved or anything. It just means your settings here. Copied, and then reset, paste. Now we need to hook the gate up and the pitch. So pitch. Right there. Gate. Right there. And it's nice if I hook the mixer up to the audio out. Okay. Now, once again, this is just a monophonic mixer. There's no stereo involved in this. Basically, it's mixing these two together. But what we can do is some chorusing. If we just take whatever the initialized value is, like that, and say about plus 1.2 hertz, and then same thing over here. I'll just initialize it to be sure, and say minus 1.2 hertz. Now they're slightly off by the same amount in both directions from the center frequency, and notes will still be the notes, except since it's slightly tuned down, slightly tuned up, you perceive the note in the middle, but you hear the modulation created by the the beating basically between the two frequencies. Nice sounding there. So, but let me go through more of the sound settings here. So for the time being, I'm going to just take channel 2, turn it down, and we'll initialize these frequency knobs again. So since we're only hearing this one, we don't want to be slightly flat now, do we? Might be people out there with perfect pitch, they'll go crazy. Okay, we have an LFO built in, but in order to hear the LFO, you do need to use one of these knobs, or both, and say whether you want to do frequency modulation with it. And usually you got to get to the 12 o'clock position before you really hear much of anything. And I'm not hearing anything. I was working with this. There it is. Yeah, as you see, look, I have it all the way up, and now we just barely hear it. And so the LFO knob is really its rate. And this FMS is really like its amount. You know, we would call this rate and amount normally, but they call it LFO frequency modulation. Yeah, I know what FM is, and it says sensitivity. We're being sensitive now with this knob rather than controlling its amount. If you're using headphones, I'm hearing some pretty cool higher frequency particles in there, but you would have to be hearing headphones to hear that. I don't think that'll come through unless you have great studio monitors or something. All right, let me turn this down. I think I could initialize it because its initial position is down. And then we have amplitude modulation. Sensitivity. So we have LFO built in for basically creating a vibrato for frequency modulation or a tremolo for amplitude modulation. And then we have an FM knob here. But if we're going to do frequency modulation, we do need to pipe in an FM, well, basically an oscillator that oscillates within the audio range, mainly meaning above like maybe 20, 40, 60 hertz at least. Otherwise, it's not FM synthesis, it's vibrato, which we are able to do with the LFO. But here, I'm just going to take in another one of these. Now, I have its pitch and gate hooked up to the MIDI input, so that way, as this oscillator plays and modulates the frequency of this oscillator, this being the modulator, this being the carrier, basically, as I play throughout the keyboard, it would give me keyboard tracking or key tracking. Well, we don't have the FM yet because it's in the 12 o'clock position. So it sounds a little more consistent throughout the range. If I were to unhook the pitch here, the frequency knob here would then be in full control over what frequency the modulating oscillator is modulating at. And here I am playing different keys. And the effect of the modulation, with the frequency being consistent, but the carrier frequency changing with the notes I play, it's just going to sound inconsistent throughout the range as to what kind of effect you're getting from it. But you can... Okay. Yeah, that actually producing some frequencies that are bothering my ears. Now, what you can do, I am going to hook this back up again so that we, oh, now my mouse is going to be playing with me. There we go. Hook this back up again so its pitch will adjust. You can still use this frequency knob, but whatever setting you find. Oh, that's getting low enough that it's in the LFO range now. Low frequency oscillation. And if you want to reduce the amount, fortunately, there's a volume dial built in. So there you can kind of like gauge the amount of FM synthesis that you want. I like that sound. Let's try harmonies. A little bit overwhelming. Okay. So anyway, there you can do FM synthesis with this guy pretty easily. And then that is what the point of the other module that I point out here. This one right here, because this is basically 4 of these, except here they don't go with the vertical sliders. They use dials for the envelope portion. So, but they're largely the same. But it's just a little bit more convenient if you want certain configurations, especially if you work in FM synthesis a lot. You may have certain algorithms already in mind of modulators and carriers, like maybe 2 carriers, 2 modulators. It's a 4 set basically there. I could bring out a 4th one here and do basically a lot of the same things. It's just that built in together system kind of just makes it easier. Now let's try something here. We got our frequency modulation going on. I like something around there. We have an envelope up here that we could play with on the frequency modulation. So let me put on the loop here. Remember, I got to get this off of 0 and the decay rate off of 0. I hear it there, but let's turn up the volume here so the amount is strong enough for us to hear it clearly. Right here. All right. Now, what we could do is also, actually, I'm going to turn that off. It's a neat novelty, but I don't think I'll be using it that way. Sounds like a kind of like a brass kind of sound from like Sega games. But here we also still have the LFO, which we can utilize on the modulating oscillator and have its frequency modulate a bit. But I need to turn the sustain rate back down here so it sustains as long as I hold the key. There we go. I hear very deep in the sound there. All right, we're getting a little bit crazy here. So anyway, let's just get rid of the FM synthesis. Go back to one sound, and we have some more to look at here. I'm trying to move my mouse here. That's a multiplier. As you can tell, that's the normal position, which is, it looks like it says 1 there. It's really small, but for example, we could look at the values here by right-clicking on it. Yeah, it's saying 1/2. So if I go like this and type in 1, you see it's slightly up. And that's its normal position. 1/2 meaning 1/2 the frequency. What? It's not doing it now. What happened? Initialize it. Am I going crazy? Not doing it now. I am hitting initialize. Oh my goodness, I broke it. Let me see something here. That was unexpected. No, it's not working over here either. I'm not sure what happened. That's bizarre. That is truly bizarre. The multiplier is just not doing it anymore. There, it's back. I don't know, man. All right. But it's a good way of me taking this one and setting it as a bass. Oh, did these get switched somehow? I must have dragged my mouse. That's what happened. No, this is hooked up to channel 2, and this they cross here. It's hard to tell, but right now channel 1 is down, so I'm hearing this. No, these did get flip-flopped somewhere along the line. I dragged them, and they changed with each other. But you see that when I dragged it back into place, you didn't see a change because of the same module, and the GUIs didn't change at all. You saw a little flicker of cable over here, but now we're hooked up right. Channel 1, channel 2. Yeah, I leave this stuff in. I don't edit it out, because it's the more crap I do, the more you'll know what maybe happens when it happens to you. It can't only just happen to me. It's gotta happen to other people too. And then I'm basically going to initialize this so we do hear both oscillators. Now it's a multiplier. So when we're down here at 1/2, I believe that's the setting we're at here, 1/2, and over here we're at 2. What that means is 1 in the middle. Like, let's say I was playing A440. 1, which neither of these is set to, would be A440. This would be 220, and this would be 880. So that being said, let me put this on 1. Let me put this on 3. Since it's a multiplier, this should now be a perfect fifth plus the octave above. It's basically like harmonics. And you can, of course, control volume right here. Almost harmonica. Not quite dirty enough, but there you go. I mean, basically you can lay out a bunch of these and do harmonics just using the multiplier. Try 4, which then would be, once again, 2 octaves above this oscillator. So can have 3 or 4 of these here and have them all in multiples. Set the volumes just right and create all sorts of different tones. Incidentally, the tone that I've been playing this whole time, I am going to, I'll just turn it down here. Just use this oscillator right now, and let's make sure it's initialized and it's multiple, so we're playing the right notes and stuff. All right, and this is feedback. This initially is in this position. Here, there, I passed the point where now it sounds a little bit breathy. There we cross another point. Even more breathy. One, 2, 3, All right, so there's 3 stages of breathiness till it now becomes kind of like a perceivable set of harmonics. And then, there's a frequency in that. I'm sorry if you're on headphones because that got me. There's a frequency in there that's just about dog, and that hurt. Oh, wow. Oh. That's harsher, but that frequency gets hidden. Yeah, there's a piercer right here. Ow! So let's do this. Let's copy the preset. Yeah, copy. Paste it over here. Right there. And we can turn this volume up. Oh, it's been up? I thought I turned the volume down so we're only hearing this oscillator. Am I going crazy, or is it the world around me? Okay, so that time we were hearing this at the same time, and really? Because we would have... I'm going to initialize and do what I did before. Better way of getting some chorusing. Minus, let's just say 1 hertz. And initialize. Plus 1 hertz. And we could maybe change the level. Change the level of this a little bit here. All right, so we're gonna wrap things up shortly, but we're gonna have a little more fun before we do that. I'm gonna add another one. Put it on channel 3 here. Oh, come on, mouse. Okay, and gate over here. And the pitch. Come on. No, not red. I do yellow for CD. Green for gate, yellow for CV, red for audio. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make this a hollow tone, turning its feedback down. I'm going to make it 1/2. Turning this all the way down, just do that. All right, and you're at 1. You're at going to be, let's say 2. All right, we're snapping a bit somewhere. I think it's over here because the attack rate's all the way up on this one. I think our release rates also. Wow, since I don't have this envelope exactly the same as these, we get a little bit more of like a ring off because there's a higher pitch, a harmonic, in fact. Well, it's set at a harmonic frequency. It is basically coming out over the release of these. I want to turn this feedback down though. We are distorting a bit, so we're gonna reduce our volumes here. Could also do it in the mixer, but gain staging being what it is. We're getting still a little rough. We need to turn this one down. There we go. Ooh, though it's a little rough together with the polyphony though. Definitely you could probably make it work with polyphony if you attenuate these volume levels a bit more. But as two notes, hey, you could do a little bit of organum. Yeah, we're sounding real Sega now. All right, folks. Well, thank you for letting me indulge myself there a little bit. I am probably going to use this as a screenshot right here for the thumbnail. Please, if you found this useful or enjoyable at all, or if it helped you fall asleep, please hit the like button in your sleep, and it helps me out immensely in keeping this going. And like, share, subscribe, as they say. And if you have questions, leave them in the comment section, or anything constructive to say, likewise. Until next time, take care, folks, and stay free.